For everything about life beyond the game.
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 For everything about life
Beyond the game.
Visit Spin.ph/life.
For everything about life beyond the game.
For everything about life.
For everything about life.
For everything about life beyond the game.
Beyond the game.
Beyond the game.
Beyond the game. For everything about life.
Beyond the game.
Beyond the game. Visit Spin.ph/life.
For everything about life.
For everything about life.
For everything about life beyond the game, visit Spin.ph/life.
Spin.ph/life.
Bam!
Mabuhay Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, Mega Manila at World, at isa na naman pong Huwebes, kaya isa na naman pong episode ng Spin Zoom In kung saan pauupuin po namin sa hot seat ang isa ho sa mga inaabangan nating mga newsmakers, sports newsmakers. Pero bago ang lahat, papatiin po muna natin ang ating pong mga tropa, Spin.ph Barkada. Unahin natin ang ating pong reporter na si Randolph Leongson. Randolph, good day.
Good afternoon sa inyong lahat, sa ating mga manonood, at pwede silang makisali sa kwentuhan natin, lalo na yung guest natin today, Idols, no? Isa to sa mga pinakamasarap na kausap. Hindi ko lang alam kung nagigits tayo ngayon, but a wealth of knowledge, and we'll try to pick his brains in our short time with him today.
Alright, thank you so much, Randolph. Me too, I'm excited. But first, papatiin muna natin si Carlos Sacamos, ang ating pong Associate Managing Editor. Carl?
Idol, good. Magandang tanghali sa iyo at sa mga viewers natin. Sobrang eloquent nitong guest natin. Maraming kumbaga kulang yung oras natin para makasama natin siya today. So sana ma-take advantage or make the most out of it na lang natin yung time natin sa kanya. Nila, Idol. Salamat.
Definitely, we will make the most out of it sa ating pong meeting with him. But first, papatiin natin ang ating pong Head of Reporters, Boss Robert Gerardo.
Boss Idol, magandang hapon. At sa mga nanonood din sa atin, magandang hapon. Simulan na natin to, Idol. Ano tayo magpatumpik-tumpik pa?
Excited na. Marami po tayong tatalakayin. Yung mga viewers po natin, pwede po kayong sumali sa aming kwentuhan. You can send in your questions for our guest this afternoon. But first, let me say hi to our PBA Press Corps President and our Associate Editor, Jerry Ramos.
Hi, good day everyone. Oo, tama yung mga sinabi ni Randolph, Carlo, and Ruben, no? Ito even before na pumunta siya rito, I've covered him in international tournaments during his time in Lebanon and in Jordan. And I would say he's one of the most colorful and most interesting coaches I've ever talked to. So stick around and bibigay namin siya sa inyo mayat maya lang. Snow?
Alright, maraming salamat sa iyo, Boss Jerry. And siyempre, hindi ko tayo makukumpleto kung wala po ang aming pinakama, ang aming Editor-in-Chief, Eduardo Katakutan.
Hi, Snow. Magandang hapon ho. And, wag na natin patagalin. Sabi nga ni Jerry, maganda itong bisita natin, magandang kausap. And, excited too.
All right, thank you so much, Boss Dodo. So we won't be wasting his time with petty greetings. Let's call in our guest this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. He is our SVP, Program Director, and former Gilas Pilipinas coach. Ladies and gentlemen, Coach Tab Baldwin. Hi, Coach Tab. Good afternoon. Welcome to Spin.
Hi, Snow. Great to be here with you guys at Spin, and what an illustrious group of correspondents I'm going to be asked to deal with this afternoon. So looking forward to it. Let's have some fun.
All right, but nonetheless, Coach, a lot of people have been asking us. I know you've been already, you already discussed a lot of topics regarding Gilas Pilipinas, but here's one thing that, some people have already failed to ask you. Is Gilas going back to the PBA borrowed format, sir? Would it go back to that scenario once more?
Look, Snow, there's so many, parties involved in that decision. From my perspective, and I talked to the team about this last night, we always want to put the best players that we have on the court that are available, whether they be PBA players, whether they be collegiate players, or international players. So I think that that's going to be over the next couple of years. That's going to be a continuing saga for us. So I guess in the meantime, what we really want to try and do is develop as many players within the systems that we're going to run as we possibly can, and avoid that scenario where we're bringing people in at the last minute in 2023 who haven't been exposed to the program, the systems, or the chemistry that we want to develop. So it's a complex problem. But the short answer to your question is yes, we would love to have PBA players whenever they're available.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so right now, boss, how's the team and how are you looking at forming a really formidable lineup for 2023?
It's really quite a complex and yet simple, prospect. We take who we have. We understand that in a world championship, we are going to be an underdog. And in order to be successful as an underdog, we really believe that the strength of the team has to far outweigh the strength of the individual players. So we're going to work really hard on developing a chemistry among the players, as many players as we can, as I said, including coming from wherever they come from. And in 2023, try to put a team on the floor that's very comfortable playing with one another, very comfortable in the systems that we're going to use, and reliant on those systems rather than trying to go out and match some great basketball nations, man for man, talent for talent. We just don't see that as a formula for success. Rather, we see trying to make the team what we can depend on in order to be successful, and the players' talents within that team allow those talents to shine.
All right, Coach, I'm giving the mic to Randolph, but one last question from my end for this cluster. Coach, isn't it hard for you to, create a formidable lineup considering that the attraction of the PBA is always there? You know, like you're having this program planned for 1 year, but you know, one of these days, one of your players might approach you and say, Coach, can I have this itch to join the PBA or other leagues, especially that Japan and some other international tournaments are already attracting Filipino players. Don't you think that's one of the challenges that you are facing right now?
Well, Snow, you're right. This is the landscape of basketball, and honestly, not just in the Philippines. We might be a little bit exaggerated here with player movement between leagues and the national team, but it is the landscape of basketball these days. When FIBA chose to go to the Windows format, that meant they were going to put FIBA competitions right in the middle of league play all over the world. And so a country like Serbia or Greece or somebody like, they might get all of their best players right in the middle of a league season, but they're going to get a very, very short window to train those players and build a team. So in some respects, having a program where we might not have our best talent, but we have a lot more time with these players, in some respects, that there's an advantage to that in terms of developing a team. But at the same time, we are always welcoming the talent when and where it comes, but there's got to be a sort of a cutoff date or a cutoff time at which when we bring a player in, if they don't have time to integrate themselves into the systems, then they become counterproductive to the overall success of the team. And that's a judgment call. It's a judgment call made by the coaching staff. So yeah, we're playing that game all the time with the talent that we have available to us.
But right now, do you have players being offered contracts abroad, boss? Not just not just locally, but you know, as we all know, 30 Ravenna already opened doors for Filipinos there in Japan.
I don't really get into that with the players. You know, their professional work is theirs. If they have something they need to talk to me about availability, then obviously I'm going to sit down and talk with them about availability. But we want all the players that do go overseas to make sure that what is included in their contracts is the FIBA clause that allows them to be released for national team duty. We want to make sure that all players have that clause in their contract. And to be honest, in all the leagues around the world, that is a required clause. So we feel pretty comfortable that if we really demand that a player be released, that in most cases they're going to be. And there's always going to be those cases where the club says to the player, you're injured. You know, you're going to miss the next game or two for us so that you don't have to leave and go to the national team. That happens. That's the real world. But I think that most clubs are getting used to releasing their players for national team duty. And it's become such a short window that they have to release them that we don't have too many problems with that now.
But you're open to that, boss. You're open to lending players to international tournaments, boss, one day.
Well, I'm not a club, so I won't be lending anybody. I will be asking for players to come from international teams. But if I have my group here, we will have very established timeframes that we're training, and within those timeframes, the players that are committed to the national program will be expected to be in the national program. If they're not full-time committed to Gilas, then yes, of course, we will work with their professional clubs.
All right. Doc?
Hi, Coach. Long time no see.
Hi, Randolph. How are you?
Anyway, Coach, the first Sir Jerry has said that he's covered you numerous times in international arenas, but I think most of the Filipino fans have gotten to know you way back in 2013 without the Santa Claus beard and all, almost a decade as a consultant for Coach Chotres. And obviously, you've spent a lot of time here in the Philippines. And now you're back as the program director for SBP. The question, Coach, is how would you compare the development now? Or do you believe that the process that you are putting for the national team moving forward could be more effective compared to the past instances? Because it seems like it's always stop and go years back. And now, how convinced are you that the program that we have can really bring fruits, especially that you've mentioned in the past? You're not just looking at 2023, but also looking ahead to 2027.
Look, I really believe in this type of program because This is a team that is being run more like a league team. So we get a lot of continuity and training with the players. And every national coach around the world always wants more time with players. Well, that's one luxury that we have. The sacrifice on our end is that we don't get the most talent on a regular basis or on a long-term consistent basis. Nonetheless, the talent that we have projecting forward is extremely good. And of course, you know, if we can look forward to a day when we can get players like Kai Soto and AJ Edu and some of the players playing overseas in for regular training activities, it's going to strengthen the program even more. Nonetheless, I think that every Filipino fan knows in their heart of hearts that when we walk on the floor at an international tournament, in the vast majority of cases, once we leave Southeast Asia, when we get to the sharp end of a tournament, we're going to be a huge underdog, whether it's Asia, where we have to play a China or a Korea or an Australia or a New Zealand, we're going to be an underdog, whether it's a world championship, World Cup. If we get into the second round or into the medal rounds, we're going to be an underdog. And there's no question that from my experience, the way that you win as an underdog is with team chemistry. You don't go out and say, man for man, talent for talent, running the same things that the great teams in the world are running, we're going to beat them. You have to believe that that day for your team as an underdog can be a special day. So if we play a team like a Germany, maybe if we play them straight up 10 times, we can beat them 2 or 3. We have to believe that that one day in that tournament is the day that we're going to win because we have the chemistry as a team and not as individuals. And I think if you do that, then you have a chance. And even in 2023, even in 2027, I still don't think we're going to have, you know, man for man, an elite basketball team talent-wise against the top 10 teams in the world. And yet we want to be able to compete with those top 10 teams and on any given day, beat them.
Coach, just a quick follow-up. You've mentioned competing at a higher level. You've mentioned in past interviews that you want us to not just advance to the second round, but hopefully in the medal rounds too. But Coach, just looking at your history, can you draw comparisons to this Gilas program that you have now with all the talents, with the cadets that we have, to that New Zealand team that you had almost 2 decades back?
In terms of content, yes. In terms of talent, maybe not quite. In terms of time spent with the players, not at all. In this program, we get much more time with the players. But we don't have, I mean, they were professionals back then. Maybe the one area where there's some relativity is that in New Zealand, a lot of people don't know, from 1992 to 1997, I was the New Zealand junior coach. So I spent, but only about 2 or 3 weeks a year with those same players that in 2001, 2002 were then seasoned professionals by then. They were still young, but they were seasoned professionals by then. And then we reunited with me as the national coach. And so, you know, there's some similarities in that my association with those players in New Zealand started when they were young, but I didn't get a lot of time with them. Then they became professionals and then we reunited. So there are some similarities, but probably more differences.
All right, thank you so much, Coach Tab. Now let's have Carlo. Carlo.
Hi, Coach. Good.
Hey, Carlo. How are you?
Do you remember me?
Absolutely. You're the man.
I'm not. Anyway, you've mentioned before, Coach, you've always talked about the changing the culture of basketball here in the country. You've talked about the hero basketball, isolation basketball here in the country. The Filipinos' love for isolation and just hugging the ball. And you tried to change that mindset and culture among Filipinos. So my question is, how do you think that culture has changed since compared to the first time when you came here?
Well, let me correct you a little bit. I don't see myself as the catalyst of change. If anything, maybe I'm just a messenger. and a messenger to a lot of coaches who I think understand that and would like to see that. And, if through some association or maybe what we've been able to do to Ateneo, there's an example that is on the floor that people can see, then potentially I might be a small catalyst for change. But really, I believe the message is here already. And I believe I'm just probably getting a little bit more airtime than other people who are saying the same thing. Is it changing? I don't know. In some respects, maybe with some teams or with some players or some coaches, there's a change. But I don't think there should be an expectation that it's a night and day thing. I think it's an evolution. I would like to see the evolution happen quicker. But I know that there's so many factors to that. And one of the big ones really is I think that fan appreciation has to change a little bit. And it's very, very difficult because if you go back to the 80s, which a lot of our fans don't, but if you go back to the 80s, it was all about the teams. It was all about the Lakers. It was all about the Celtics, the bad boys of Detroit, these great teams. And then Michael Jordan came on the scene and David Stern wanted to change the dynamic of how the league was marketed. So he began to market the individual, and that really caught on. And from then we can track all the individuals worldwide that have been heroes through the sport. And that happened on the local level all over the world as well, not just in the Philippines. But here, I think we really attached ourselves to it from what I can observe. So in order for that to swing back in the other direction, we have to get fans to love the game, to love the intricacies of the game, to love the systems of the game, and to love the teams that are playing, and not just the individuals. I think when that starts to happen, then the money will follow that. And when the money follows that, we all know what happens. Then people appreciate what I would like to see them appreciate, which is the game and the teams.
Among your current players now, do you think you have the current crop that has already adapted to that mindset or are trying to embrace that change in culture?
Day by day, Carlo, day by day. It's like I said, it's an evolution. We have a lot of ingrained habits in these players. But what I can say is that they're all great kids and they all have a willingness. They really want to understand how the coaching staff here wants them to play, and they commit themselves to it. Of course, overcoming habits doesn't happen overnight. So, we've been hard on the players. We spend a tremendous amount of time in front of the video screen, showing the players what they're doing subconsciously out on the court, and they know it's wrong, but overcoming it is a question of repetition in drills, repetition in viewing their mistakes. And through that, there becomes an awareness in the players. And then if they'll go to practice, taking that awareness with them and trying to work on some of their bad habits, then you start to see growth. And that's really the process we're going through with these young players right now.
Coach, I know you've said your focus is on your current players right now, but can I still ask you about your why the absence of some of your players like Juan Gomez de Leaño when his brother Javi is there?
Sure. I mean, we started the process of trimming the team down at the end of the last bubble, and of course Juan had to miss the last bubble. And so in trimming it down, we were left with a situation where we had a glut of point guards. And I think, to some degree, the fact that Juan missed the last bubble, although it's a tough call for him, that hurt him. And when we had RJ Abarientos and Dwight Ramos and Jordan Heading and SJ Belengel and Matt Nieto, and we had this glut of potential point guards, there had to be a cave-in somewhere. But I've spoken with Juan, and the important thing is he knows that the door to Gilas is still open. And in ensuing bubbles after the June competitions, I've already told him he will be invited back. And we will be looking to expand the pool anyway. I'm looking at players like Mark Nonoy and Renzo Bando as well. Expanding, bringing in more talent, and as long as players are available, when we have the opportunity to expand the pool, that's what we want to do. When we have the requirement of trimming the pool down, there's always going to be some tough choices and some tough calls. And at the end of this bubble, there's going to be some real tough ones. So this is the process of selection and coaching, and it's the hardest part. Nonetheless, we have to face it head on, and we have to be grown men about it, and we have to accept what happens, and then move forward and help to build the program.
Coach, you mentioned Nonoy and Abando. How do you think they fit in to the national program? How do you think their games fit in with Gilas?
Well, I love their speed and athleticism. Of course, Mark at the point is small, but just watching him play, talking to the other coaches, thinking about him more and more, he's a kid that seems to overcome the limitations of his size. Now, defensively, there's going to be real challenges for him. And we're seeing the same thing with RJ Abarientos and SJ Bellingel, that having to overcome size limitations at the defensive end. In Southeast Asia, it's no problem. In Asia, it's probably a winnable case for them. When you get to the international level, you have to be an elite defender if you're small. Yeah. We want to try and help them achieve that because their offensive capabilities, their speed, their ability to create offense is outstanding. And for Renzo Bando, he's just a kid that can really shoot the ball. He's a tremendous athlete. And he shows that he can play in big moments. So, we're always on the lookout for which players are evolving and we will bring in. And this is going to be the nature of the program.
Thanks. Idol, that's my first batch of questions. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. Anyway, we will be sharing the questions and comments of our viewers. So please keep on posting them at the comment section below. But first, let's have Boss Ruben Dorado. Boss Ruben?
Thank you, Idol. Hi, Coach. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Coach, want to ask about the 4 players that you pick in the special draft, Jordan Heading and the rest of the guys. What can you say about them, and what do you think, what can they bring to the Gilas program, Coach?
I'll start with Jordan. Of course, Jordan is a guy that has some limited experience internationally. He had a run with Gilas. Then he played in Alab. He, of course, had his career over in the States at California Baptist. He's a bigger guard. He's a tremendous shooter. He sees the floor very well. He's a better than average defender. And I think what we're learning about Jordan is that he's a very competitive guy. So we see the evolution of a winner in Jordan. We want him to be a little bit more vocal with his leadership because he has good experience. He's come out of the Australian system where they really emphasize fundamentals and team play. So he fits in nicely. JD Tunkab is just an outstanding athlete. We're just so impressed with JD's athleticism. And I don't think a lot of people really realize that about JD. He's a cut above athletically. Very explosive, very quick, very fast. He's got to get his skills to catch up with his athleticism, right? But he's a combo guard who can help us out defensively. He's tremendous. He rebounds the ball exceptionally well from the guard position. But we need him to become a better shooter. And we need him to be able to run the team a little bit better from the point guard slot. So when you've got a kid that isn't an elite shooter, he's not your best selection as a shooting guard, and he's not an elite point guard as a leader. So he's not your best option as a point guard. But as a combo, he can give you a bit of both. Will Navarro, of course, has been in the program for a while and been with us for a while. And he's really continued to develop and just get better and better. And I don't know, Will does so many little things. I think that it's pretty well recorded how, he performed at Ateneo and being sort of that guy that stuffed the stat sheet and was a quiet performer, a very, very efficient performer. He does the same thing for us. He's probably one of our top 2 or 3 rebounders from the wing position, better than a lot of our big men. He's working hard on his shot, but he's an excellent slasher. He can give you some stuff inside, runs the floor very well, and reads the game very well. I think Chadi Rangel was probably the bolter of the group, the one that surprised a lot of people. But so my impressions with Chadi go back several years when he was playing with NU, and I saw a bigger kid who played with a lot of energy and didn't get many opportunities. And I know that we need big kids in this program. So Chadi's got a long way to go in terms of developing, but I think even after the last two bubbles, anybody that sees him play now will see a guy who's radically different. He's been a guy that's really picked up the scoring cudgels in the bubbles, and we were talking last night among the coaches. He would probably be among the top 6 or 7 scorers in the bubble in all of our scrimmages. Wow. So he has a good hands around the basket. He's smart. He rolls hard. He finishes well around the basket. But again, in terms of a 6'6" guy being able to compete, he's got to do a lot of development in his perimeter game. So he's a ways off, but unquestionably, we're certainly developing a kid that's going to be a good professional player.
Coach, I want to go back to the first time you were involved with Gilas. Did you see yourself coaching Gilas at that time, and did you see yourself being in this position, helping the national team program, Coach?
Not at all. I mean, you know, I came here to help Coach Chot in the national program and work for MVP, and you know, a lot of things blossomed from there, and you know, I just felt so blessed, the opportunity. And again, it's been recorded a lot. I was always intrigued with the Philippine basketball landscape, and it's a landscape that's fairly closed off to the world because not a lot of coaches get in here, and a lot of the imports that would play here, when I would meet them wherever out in the world, they would always talk glowingly about, you know, the love of the game here. And, you know, as somebody who loves the game myself, I always wondered what that would feel like. So, you know, it was a real blessing for me to come here, but I never saw this as something that was going to be as long-term as it has become, and potentially sort of terminal for my career. So, look, I just consider myself blessed, and I want to work every day to earn MVP's trust and confidence, and the same with the Filipino basketball fans.
Coach, do you see yourself like staying here and coaching perhaps beyond 2023, Coach?
You know, look, I would be a liar if I didn't say that if you look at my career, I've been a mercenary coach. You know, I've followed the jobs where they have come, whether that was because I was fired and had to go look someplace else, or whether opportunities arose and I left. You know, I'm getting a little bit long in the tooth now. I'm a little bit older, and it feels good to be more settled. But nonetheless, I'm not done. You know, I still feel I have a lot to contribute to the game. And right now, I'm enjoying everything that I do for Philippine basketball, but I don't try to predict the future. I simply can't. And, you know, being an expat here, I know that situations can arise, and, you know, this is a home by choice, not a home by right. And so I really respect the fact that you know, I've been welcomed here and embraced here, but I also realize that that's tenuous. So I always have to be conscious of the fact that there might come a day where I have to shake everybody's hands and say, I love you, but it's time to go. And whether that day will arise or not, I don't know. While I am here, Boss MVP, the SBP, and every team that I work for, and the Filipino fans, they will get my best. I have always done that throughout my career. I'm known as a hard worker, and that won't change.
Coach, I want to ask also about Ateneo. Of course, you were like coaching in the professional leagues in New Zealand, and then you came to Ateneo and coach college players. But Coach, what was the biggest adjustment when you came to Ateneo, Coach?
From coaching to teaching.
Yeah. Right.
That was the biggest adjustment. I mean, not to say that the Ateneo players don't require coaching, they do. And of course, the professional players require teaching at times, but the balance of that is a significant shift. It's probably 80-20 both ways. You know, when you're dealing with the pros, you're probably doing about 20% teaching and 80% coaching and man management. And that completely flips when you go into the younger ranks. And you know, I really wasn't prepared for that mentally when I did that. And the first year I tried to do a lot of coaching and not as much teaching, but I recognized with the help of the coaching staff at Ateneo that if I wanted to be successful, I was going to have to adjust myself and become more of a teacher and help these young kids move closer to their dreams, their passions, and their aspirations, and de-emphasize whatever I wanted to get out of the game.
Right. Snow, balik mo na
Alright.
sa'yo.
All right, thank you so much. Anyway, Coach Tab will be sharing with you the questions of our viewers later on. But first, let's give the moment to our boss, Jerry Ramos.
Hi, Coach. It's been
Hey,
a long
Jerry,
time.
how you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah. Just follow up to Ruben's question regarding going back to coaching. Any each of you wanting to handle the Gilas team for the World Championship in 2023?
Jerry, what I want to do as the program director is I want to continue to beat the bushes, and I want to put the best coach available with the support of the SPP and the decision-making management. We want to put the best coach available in that slot. And in all honesty, I know that I'm a candidate, but that will come with discussions with the management, with the other coaches. And if and when that time arises, of course, will have to be a consensus decision among all the parties. And it would be an honor for me. It would be a challenge. It wouldn't be something that I would be afraid of or walk away from. Nonetheless, the job as the program director is to put the best person that we have in that position, and given all the candidates and all the scenarios that we're looking at.
Coach, as project director, you're also involved with the youth team.
Because Coach Sandy is here on the staff and he's the head coach, yes, we talk about Batang Gilas, but Sandy is allowed to work autonomously. But we're Sandy and I are so close that there's probably nothing that I do that doesn't have his thumbprint all over it, and vice versa.
And where do you find satisfaction, Coach? Handling a college team or a professional one?
I find satisfaction walking on the court, and the fact that, at my age, I'm still healthy enough to do that. I still love it. I still have a passion for it. So the players out there, I'm always going to have good relationships with the vast majority of them. I enjoy the relationships with the players. It is the most important thing at the end of the day. So really my enjoyment, my passion comes from just the opportunity that I've been blessed with throughout my career, throughout my life. And, sometimes I question that maybe I should have done something in life that might have been, more productive for society. Sometimes I lie in bed and I say, gosh, you've just played a game your whole life, and, what has come out of that? But selfishly, wonderful relationships, wonderful experiences, and hopefully I've been able to contribute to the growth and welfare of some of the young men that I've coached.
Okay, one quick follow-up, Coach. Have you tried coaching 3x3 before?
No. I do it every day in practice, but as a game, no. And I'm not a big fan of it. I know that it is one of the great training tools that we have in coaching 5-on-5. We play a tremendous amount of 3-on-3, but we don't mutate the game to create rules for 3-on-3. We use the 3-on-3 to help players learn the game to play the 5-on-5 game better. And, there's a lot of sports around the world, rugby, cricket, volleyball, that have gone to the reduced version of players. And, there's economic reasons for that, but they're trying to sell it as excitement reasons. And if that's your cup of tea, great, for the fans and for the players. But for me as a coach, I was born and raised in the 5-on-5 game. I'm a direct descendant of James Naismith, not by blood, but by love. And I will never mutate away from the 5-on-5 game.
Okay, appreciate it, Coach. No.
All right, Coach, since you made mention of the 3x3 during your practices, I'm sure you've seen how Juan Gomez Deliano performed in that basketball discipline. Do you suggest, and I'm sure you're also aware of how he performed during the Chooks to Go Pilipinas 3x3, do you suggest that, Juan Gomez joins the 3x3 of the national team, boss, considering that, he's one of the best players at that particular basketball discipline?
Well, Snow, that's not really my call. My comment on Juan is he is an outstanding talent. He's going to be a tremendous professional basketball player. And he would, I think, with his talent, be a weapon in the 3-on-3 game. But that's Ronnie's call, and I don't want to be stepping on Ronnie's toes. It's his job to make those calls. He's a very competent basketball coach, and the 3-on-3 game is his game now, and he's been an outstanding 5-on-5 coach as well, as we all know. But that's Ronnie's call, and I think that Juan has to be a guy that is a potential selectee, but so are a lot of other players, and Ronnie's blessed with a big pool of players that can perform at that level, and so he has to make that call.
But being the SPP program director, boss, are you not talking to him, or perhaps is he not approaching you about recommendations and all?
Well, they were in the bubble here for a week with us, and Ronnie and I had a few conversations, but we didn't really get into too many issues like that. SBP trusts him to run that program successfully, as they should, and they've trusted me to run this program, and there's not a lot of crossover. I have enough responsibility, enough worries and concerns here in the 5-on-5 game with our goals and our aspirations. And nobody is questioning Ronnie. So nobody has come to me and said, hey, give Ronnie a hand. He's capable and competent, and he's going to do that job.
But going back to Juan Gomez, do you think he can thrive on that particular 3x3 genre, boss?
No, he's a talent, and I'm not a 3-on-3 coach. So, I'm probably the wrong person to ask for that.
Okay, I won't be asking you anymore
Thank
about
you, Snow.
All right, Boss Dodo.
Coach.
How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, long time no see you.
Save me from snow, please. Save me from snow.
I've seen teams that you've handled evolve a lot, Coach, over the years. You see them evolve. How about you, Coach? How much have you evolved as a coach? How much have you changed? Are there things that you won't ever do in Lebanon or New Zealand or in any other league you coach, not that you're doing now in the Philippines and with Gilas Filipinas?
I stay very close to my old tall black players from New Zealand. We had such a wonderful experience. And I tell those guys now, I say, look, you wouldn't recognize me as a coach now.
Really?
And they said, well, we wouldn't want to recognize you, compared to what you were. And they're right. I made so many mistakes back in the day, and I was probably this whirlwind of energy back then when I coached, and I drove them mercilessly. And, I still push players hard, but I think I have a much better feel for the game, a much more intellectual feel for the game. And tactically, from 1995 to 2013, when I joined Coach Chot, I was a disciple of the triangle offense. I ran that almost exclusively offensively all during that time.
Really?
And I was a very innovative coach defensively. We used a lot of what we call junk defenses. I did that a lot, a lot of triangle and twos and box and ones and switching from man to zone and zone to man. And I've become much more mainstream defensively while still trying to, innovate some with our defensive schemes and systems. But offensively, I ran the dribble drive for a while, and then I started with Ateneo. I started to kind of spread my wings a little bit and trying to become innovative with some offensive stuff. And, we used some stuff that we steal from Pete Carrill, his high post offense and variations of that. So, yeah, I've evolved a lot. And I think I'm probably a little bit harder to play for now because there's probably too much crap up in my head from too many years doing this. So sometimes I think I overburden the players a little bit. But with this great coaching staff that we have, they rein me in a lot. Believe me, they say, hey, coach, that's enough. You can't spend 2 hours in a video session with these guys. And, they need to rest. They need their rehydration. They need ice baths. And, I just want to teach. So, it's definitely an evolutionary process for me. And I think I still have a lot to learn. There's some great coaches out there all over the world, including here in the Philippines. So it's a never-ending process of learning the game.
Who are your Bobby Go here, a friend of ours at Spin? He wants to ask, who are your coaching inspirations when you were entering the profession, coach?
My number one coaching inspiration was an American football coach, a coach that coached at the University of Alabama. His name was Paul Bear Bryant, very famous coach. And he influenced me in terms of the treatment of players, and he probably was one of the toughest taskmasters that ever roamed a sideline on any sport. And he believed in extreme discipline. He believed in submission of the athlete to the team. He believed in the team very much. And he believed in the joy of winning as a group of individuals. He followed military tactics and military training quite significantly. He was a big disciple of General George S. Patton, who I am also as well. General Douglas MacArthur, who's well known here in the Philippines. But also my father was a great influence on me being a fundamentalist as a coach, because my father was around in the origins of the game. My father played in the 1920s, so the game was very young when he played, and he developed an appreciation for the fundamentals. And then probably the other guy was Coach Larry Chapman, the first coach that I worked for at Auburn University at Montgomery. And he's the one that really taught me defense. He's the one that really taught me to appreciate defense and use that as a pathway to winning. And, I was probably an offensive coach. I loved offense until that point in time. And then I think my disposition as a competitor and as probably as a taskmaster, I was drawn to the defensive side of the ball because, that's where you really find the young men who want to compete, who want to fight, and who want to win. You find them on the defensive end of the floor. And I would probably list those three. There are others, but I would list those three as primary.
But how much have you compromised over the years, Coach? I mean, you're saying you compromised a bit on assistant coaches are trying to rein you in. But in terms of the sensitivities of Filipinos, Coach, a lot of Filipino fans and officials are especially sensitive. How much have you compromised on that, Coach?
Probably more than I like to, and maybe not as much as I should have. And yes, you're right. I mean, without that being a derogatory term, I don't think sensitivity is probably the right characterization of Filipino. I think they're kind. I think they're very kind-hearted. And when they see somebody like me who is brusque and blunt and to the point, they probably mischaracterize me as not kind-hearted. I think that I am. I think that I have great care, great affinity for people, but I'm a firm believer in the truth. And I've always been a person that wanted to hear the truth about me, no matter how much it hurt me, because I felt I couldn't improve myself if I didn't know what my shortcomings were. And, where I may have spoken out of turn, whether I was right or not, there was never any intention to ruffle feathers or step on toes. There was only an intention to tell the truth as I perceived it to be. And so, if I offended people, they should know that that was never my intent. I do care about coaches. I care about the fans. I care about the players very much. But more than all of that, I care about the game, because everybody that's involved in the game has been given a gift. And we should all treat and respect the game with tremendous love. And, that's, I think, what I've tried to do in my career. And if that's led me astray at times, then I apologize that, but I'll never apologize for my passion for the game.
Okay.
Thanks, Coach. Yeah, all right, Coach. This is the time we're in. We're going to read the comments of our viewers. Ricky Rices, do you agree that South Korea is on a higher level than the Philippines? That's the first question. The second one is Australia, New Zealand, China, Iran, and South Korea are the elite teams and Big Five in Asia, Oceania, while the Philippines, Japan, Taiwan, Jordan, Qatar are on the same level, underdogs and simply contenders. What's your take on that, Coach?
I think that's an excellent characterization of where we're at right now as a program. And probably the tier that he included us on would be if we had all of our PBA players. So coaching an all-amateur team, I think that we're an underdog even in that tier. But what I've told the team, and even when we had the PBA players in, I've said really what our goals are. We have short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. What we really want to do is cement our place, no matter who our roster is, as the number one team in Southeast Asia. the midterm goals is to become the #1 team in Asia. And if we can do that leading into 2023, I think that will be a phenomenal accomplishment. And then I think the long-term goal in that is to be competitive with the best team in Asia and the two other, the really non-Asian teams that are now included in our zone, and that's China and New Zealand and Australia. And I think when we reach that tier, we are genuinely a top 15 team in the world. And I think if we can get to that level, that puts us where we want to be in terms of our highest aspirations. And that is, we walk on the court with the respect of every team in the world and with the chance to beat every team in the world on that day. And I think these are excellent goals. They're extremely lofty. Anybody that thinks that we should walk on the court right now with this team and be favored against the Jordan, against the Lebanon, against the Taiwan, they're just not realistic. Not with these young players. We can and will compete with them, and on our day we will beat them. But this is going to be a situation where we try to knock these goals off one at a time. Don't try to get too far ahead of ourselves. I'm not telling anybody don't to expect. I'm not telling anybody don't to desire that we win every game. I'm just saying there's a process that we have to go through.
All right, Coach, another question here from basketball.ph. Are there a few foreign players that are Gilas eligible that you are looking into to add to the pool in the near future? Do we have?
There certainly are. There certainly are. We do want to increase our naturalized pool, and everybody should recognize that we already have a naturalized pool that includes players like Jordan Clarkson and Mo Tautua and these other players who have been naturalized, and there's a lot of them. So on any given situation, if we found that we needed one of those players, we have the opportunity to at least request them. But beyond that group, we are still looking at players who have not yet been naturalized. But because the process is, quite an extensive process where we have to deal with the government, we have to be on the same page as the government, and we have to appreciate the government's support of the SBP and of basketball in general. We can't rush the process. We can't just assume that anybody we want is going to be available. And we see that happening now in Indonesia. I'm sure a lot of people have read the news, and it seems like they have an open door policy. Well, we know that we don't, because here in the Philippines, there's a tremendous amount of respect for the Philippine passport and the Philippine citizenship, and we don't just give that away like candy. So we have to respect that process as well.
All right. So any names that you can perhaps share to us, boss? The new
No,
ones?
there aren't. No, there aren't.
But how many? Do you already have a list, or you're still looking for some?
It's a fluid list. Players come on and off in our discussions with agents based on their availability, based on if we like them, based on if they have a desire. So, the process can start from either end. We can be approached by an agent, or we can see a player, like them, and then go through the process of talking to the agent. Is the player interested? This is an ongoing process, and we've been through it with 3 or 4 players up to this point in time, and some are already ruled out, some are still in our thinking, and some will yet come into the mix as we continue this process.
What about Jalen Green, Coach Jalen Green?
It would be nice to think of Jalen, but Jalen's already, I believe, he's already represented the United States in a FIBA competition, and that rules him out.
Coach, you've mentioned Jordan Clarkson, and I know you've always wanted your players to come in, ideally 1 month before a tournament. And what if something happens like JC suddenly becomes a local player in the eyes of FIBA, and but he'll only be available maybe in a week before the World Cup? How would you approach that kind of? I'm sure it's a good problem to have, but how would you approach that kind of problem, Coach?
That's a great question. It's a difficult one to answer, because when you have heard the term or the figure 1 month before, that is not a hard and fast figure. That represents an individual player that we're looking at. And so certain players, based on age, based on experience, based on time in the program, require more. Some require less. A professional player who's been around and has seen a lot will adapt much quicker. Now, again, here I am going to get in trouble with my bluntness, but you know, there might be some professional players out there, and I'm not going to name any, but we might know from speaking to their coaches and speaking to and watching them play, they're not the sharpest tool in the shed, but we know they're an outstanding player. You bring them in 1 week before, and all they're going to do is disrupt all the chemistry. We already know that a player like Jordan Clarkson is exceptionally intelligent. He can come in and pick up a large portion of your systems very, very quickly. So you don't have any issues with Jordan coming in late. But if you take another player, you know, and let's use somebody who I don't know specifically, but somebody who was mooted as a potential here many years ago, but somebody who also has a reputation in the NBA as, let's say he takes a bit of time to acclimate, somebody like JaVale McGee.
Yeah.
If we were going to bring him in at the last minute, I don't know, but I would anticipate that he wouldn't be able to acclimate himself to complex systems very, very quickly. Now, I could be wrong. I could be 100% wrong because I've never spent any time with him. But by reputation, that's what I might expect. So it gives you an idea of what I'm talking about.
Yes, yes.
Now, please don't make that a headline, because that's just an example. And, you know, I'm just trying to paint a picture so everybody sees the challenge that we go through when we bring players into the bubble.
I'll think about it, Coach. No, just a joke, Coach. My other question is, since you're Gilas program director, Coach, how high on your Christmas list in 2022 and 2023 the possibility that Jordan Clarkson can be available to your team come the 2023 World Cup? Is it number 1, number 2, number 10 in your Christmas list, Coach?
If for some reason FIBA made him a local player, not have to be in the naturalized category, I'd walk over broken glass to take him a week before. There's no question about that. As a naturalized player, of course, we have to look at the entire content of our roster, and we have to determine whether we can get by with the size that we have, not using one of our naturalized big men, and have to bring Jordan in. But certainly there would be a strong argument to bring him in almost all circumstances because of his experience, because of, you know, the way he's playing now is, you know, otherworldly. And it'd be very difficult to say, no, we don't think we need that talent in our team. But as I said before, I don't think there'd be any issues with Jordan, you know, acclimating himself into the roster. The real question would be, how much would that shorten our front line in terms of depth?
Yes.
And could we escape with what we have?
You were around. Jordan Clarkson was around you when remember when we were in the Jones Cup, Coach? No, I think it was 2016, 2017. No, you
I had
have a good idea, no?
I had the reins of the team of Gilas in 2016 when Jordan came in and then ultimately wasn't allowed to play. But he was in the environment. He practiced with the some. You know, I mean, I could go on all day talking about what everybody already knows. He's a great kid. He's a great player. He loves the program. He has a desire to represent the country. There's no negatives when you discuss Jordan. Just no negatives at all.
All right, Coach, still with Jordan Clarkson, sir, he's been playing tremendously in the NBA lately. Don't you think we'll have a problem if, in case he gets a pay increase in the near future? Because, you know, that's one of the concerns, right? If we're getting in players from the NBA, that, you know, SBP and the other basketball associations would have to pay a certain amount of insurance for these players.
I mean, Snow, you're absolutely right. You know, budget is always a consideration. And, you know, Boss MVP and all the other supporting companies now that are supporting Gilas have been extremely generous in the past. But it isn't a money tree. So, you know, I really don't get involved in that. I don't know what Jordan would require. But you're right. He's going to move up and up and up on the NBA pay scale because of how he's performing. So, you know, obviously that's a question that would require an answer at the time.
All right. Anyway, I'll be reading some more questions from the viewers. From Paulo Miguel Racelis. Hi, Coach. Do you see yourself coaching come 2023 for Gilas, or is there a search for the next Gilas coach where Coach Nenad Turnich coming out, or will Coach Jong officially take over as the permanent Gilas coach?
That's an ongoing process. We are going to continue to search for coaches. We also have our eye open for international coaches that could potentially be part of the mix, and I could be part of the mix. So no decisions are going to be made yet. What we've been doing with the coaching job is we've sort of been cycling guys through it that we know can handle the head coaching role. And we've been watching how the players adjust, because that's an important factor as well. Coaches can come in late. They can be there for a long time. So, it's a complex dynamic in terms of selecting the right coach. I think a lot of organizations don't treat that. They don't do the due diligence to make sure that the coach they bring in, ticks as many boxes as possible. And we want to make sure in this program that whether we're selecting players, coaches, managers, that we're doing the due diligence and we're working on the chemistry that will be best suited to the program.
Coach, I was able to talk to Coach Trico a few weeks ago, and that was the interview wherein the statement that he's looking towards competing toe-to-toe with the Philippines in 2 years' time. How are you taking that statement, boss? Is that really a serious threat, quote unquote, from Indonesia, that that they are really rebuilding for the Philippines at this juncture?
I think every program around the world right now is, apart from the pandemic, they're all trying to improve themselves. And Raiko has a lot of international experience. What he did in Iran and what he did here were about building programs. So he's probably a good prospect to do that in Indonesia. But to be perfectly honest, Raiko is very free with his comments about Philippine basketball, and I would be very reluctant to make a lot of comments about Indonesian basketball. So I don't pay attention to what he says. I stick to what I'm trying to do. I work with the people that I'm working with here, and I think we all appreciate Raiko's time with the Philippines. But is he going to make Indonesia competitive? Well, my job is to make sure that he can. So that's how I look at it.
Okay, some more questions from the fans. From Angelo Tamayo. Coach Tab, thoughts about playing in the PBA as early as 16 or 17, just like the EuroLeague? Do you think that's feasible?
Well, it's a PBA decision, first of all. But I think ultimately there might be players here who it might be a bit young. Filipinos tend to mature a little bit later. That's why the college system seems to work well here in terms of feeding the pros, because they come in 23, 24 years old into the PBA. So 16, 17 might be a bit young, but certainly we've got them here in the bubble, 19, 20, 21-year-olds that could compete in the PBA. But that's a PBA decision about how they want to manipulate the rules, probably in conjunction with the NCAA and the UAAP. There are a lot of factors go into a decision like that.
All right, Coach. Anyway, this is a question coming from me. So what's really the program of SPP and Gilas Pilipinas from today to 2023 and beyond, boss? Because that's one of the interesting issues that we want to discuss with you, being at the helm of SBP now, being the program director. So what are your program and what do you want to attain in that particular program, boss?
Well, Snow, we haven't put a limit or an end date on the program, and it may come and may very well come. And I guess maybe I could say it probably will come someday. Mm-hmm. But what we see is a program that builds a national team pool of players. We expect that players will come in and out of that pool. And while they're in that pool, we want to ingrain them in a culture that we're trying to build for the national team. So the longer we can keep the players in the pool, the more versed they become in that culture. And, there's going to be time limits for all of these players. They're going to be in the program 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe no longer than that. But when they leave the program, we hope that we have a Gilas player for the next 10 years of his career. And if we can make that pool, much, much bigger than 15 to 20 to 25, maybe 30 players, then when every tournament arises, we're not stuck in a situation where either we're bringing in untested players or uncultured players in terms of the Gilas culture, or we have to go and get very young players. So I think, that that kind of paints the picture of what we're trying to achieve. And hopefully at the end of the day, in each of these major competitions, we're able to get the best players. But if we can't, we still want to be able to get Gilas players.
So correct me if I'm wrong, boss. Are we really looking at, hopefully one day coming up with a permanent Gilas team?
I don't think that's feasible. Financially, I don't think it's good for the basketball landscape of the Philippines. I think that our best players need to be seen in the PBA or need to be playing internationally. I think that the more that Gilas can have access to the best players, that's the perfect world. We know that doesn't always exist. But I think that the PBA has been very clear in their comments that they support the national program. And I expect that everybody, when it comes to the World Cup and the major tournaments, is going to see that support. And until we get there, windows are going to be, sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. And I just think that's the landscape. And nobody has the perfect solution to that. And so we should stop, moaning about it. We should stop crying about it. We should get on with the job of building a national team of players that is beyond the best 12. And we should go to every competition ready to fight with the best guys available.
Okay. So Coach, based on your experience and from your knowledge, boss, what's the best and most ideal grace period of preparations for a team? Like, for example, when we're borrowing players from the PBA, what exactly is your most ideal grace period for them to be included in the team?
Well, from my experience, 3 weeks, you can get a lot done. 1 week, it's extremely difficult. And 2 weeks always seems to be the compromise in terms of, how long you can get players. But trust me, if you've got players for only 2 weeks, you limit the systems that you're going to use. And when you're talking about the elite teams in the world, you would love to have the full use of your systems. So the more that we can spend time with these players, the more we can get away with a 2-week window if that's what's necessary. And, in 2 weeks, if the players have already learned the systems, if they already understand the culture, then it just becomes a refresher course. So it's feasible. You can get a lot done. But when you're bringing guys in that are new to the system, 2 weeks you're going to have to dumb down your system. And that's just the fact of life. Or you have to go out with a very simplistic system. And that means the better teams are going to have an advantage because they have better talent.
All right, but what's your ideal time frame, boss?
3 weeks. Oh, no, my ideal time frame, full time. But that isn't going to happen. But, in terms of realistic and what you might be able to ask premier competitions to compromise in terms of holding their schedule or asking teams to be without players, maybe 3 weeks. But that would be my ideal. But it might be a stretch for the PBA.
All right. A question from Sela Raitis, Coach Tab. As an experienced international coach and seeing different styles and discipline systems of play, which country team do you think is applicable and perhaps will work and probably be effective to integrate into our Gilas system to adapt?
Snow, can you kind of paraphrase that for me?
Yeah, I'm trying to edit it on air. But anyway, here's the question. Coach Tab, as an experienced international coach and seeing different styles and discipline and system of play, which country team do you think is applicable and perhaps will work and probably be effective for Gilas to adapt? What country, boss? What
you mean for us to emulate?
Yes.
I think that's
what
the
I'm trying to say.
Good question, and it's not a a thought process I've really gone through. But look, the Australian system is proven itself to be outstanding. They have a great professional league. They have a tremendous development system there through the coaches. Mind you, a lot of people talk about the young players coming out of Australia and going to the NBA. That's a credit to their coaching system. And if you don't know their coaching system, it's extensive. It comes through academies where the coaches are taught the Australian way, which is, obviously successful because they're producing a lot of NBA players, and they now have a league that is rated in the top 4 or 5 in the world. So, they have a tremendous system, and we wouldn't go wrong and having a good hard look at how they do things in Australia. It kind of hurts me to say that, being a New Zealander, but I'm going to go ahead and give them a bit of credit for that.
All right. Anyway, another question here, boss. An interesting question here. I just lost the name, but nonetheless, he's asking about 30. Is there a chance that 30 can reunite with Gilas' team at this point?
30 has some commitments that carry him through the end of May, and I've already spoken with 30, and 30's spoken with his team. That would be bringing him in early June, and 30 has some familiarity with what we're doing. But for me, and when I talked to 30, 30 said he didn't think it would be fair to the other guys. And I said, look, I think it's too late as well. But I haven't preempted, I guess, myself from having another discussion with 30 and saying, look, mate, you know, I want you in earlier. And then if I do that, we'll see how it goes.
All right. What about in his new contract, boss? We were talking about contracts a while ago that, you know, it's already a prerequisite for players to sign a contract allowing them to join their national teams, not just here in the Philippines, right, but also abroad. But is that part of 30's new contract in Japan, boss?
My understanding is that it is part of his contract, that he has the FIBA release clause in his contract. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that is standard in all the Japanese B-League, B1 and B2 contracts. I don't think that they are separate from FIBA in that sense.
All right. And another question here that's somehow related, boss, is he's asking, I'll try to mention his name later, all right? Because we're getting a lot of questions now. How happy are you, boss, seeing Filipinos being offered contracts in different countries, boss?
I think that, you know, in life, and I've told my children this, everybody that I seek to influence in any way, I tell them the same thing. The more you can develop options in your life, the more satisfied you're going to be with the outcomes in your life. And there are times that you have to make decisions and commit to those decisions. But when you have options before you make those decisions, I think you've put yourself in the best possible scenario. And so that's, you know, I think you can read from that what my feelings are.
All right, Boss Ruben has a question for you. But first, let me ask this one from Rob Andrew Lo Dong Yapon. What's the status of Remy Martin in Gilas, boss?
Remy Martin, Remy is a naturalized player. I don't believe that he has been cleared to play as a local. Again, another player who's a tremendous talent, has expressed his desire to represent the country. And if there was ever a need for a point guard, which I don't really, you know, anticipate that, we would certainly be looking at Remy. Obviously, right now, what we want to try and do is help him get the local status that a lot of these Phil Ams and Phil Foreigners would love to have. And if they had only gotten their passports at an earlier stage in their life, you know, we would be bringing a lot of these guys in to play as locals in the national team.
Coach, my question is with regards to the Olympic qualifying tournament next month. Coach, of course, tall odds facing Serbia and Dominican Republic. But Coach, aside from perhaps qualifying the Olympics, what kind of result will you be very satisfied with in the OQT, Coach?
Look, as a coach, we'll analyze the performance, right? And I know that the fans don't do that really to the degree that we do. They don't use the analytics. They don't go into each player. We don't concede that we won't win. You know, I will never concede that. The opponent has to beat us. As unrealistic as that may sound, I just can't imagine walking to the sideline of a court and having a team that's already lost the game before the tip-off. So we don't concede that. But at the same time, we will analyze every performance in June and leading up to the Asia Cup from the standpoint of our analytics. And we will be going through that with the players and trying to help them become better international players and play our systems better. We will analyze our systems and see where we are deficient as a coaching staff and where we need to shore up our system and strengthen it and give our players a better chance.
How about the composition of the team, coach? So far, what are you like targeting? Like a fast team or smart team, something like that, coach? What's the goal?
Again, I don't think speed is the answer to beating great international teams. It will help, obviously, but I think chemistry is the best chance. So I think that selecting a final 12 that play well together, that have an understanding of one another, that read the game well, will probably be in large part responsible for whom we select.
Coach, so far, how's the chemistry going there in Inspire? Of course, it's a centralized environment, but how's the players right now in terms of working on that chemistry, coach?
Off court, very easy, extremely easy. These guys get along with one another great. They're young. They don't have a lot of distractions. They love to be out on the court. They love to work hard. They have a lot of fun with one another. But on court, you couldn't give a more difficult scenario. A whole bunch of young players coming from different coaching backgrounds, coming from different playing backgrounds. It is an extremely difficult prospect for us. Nonetheless, it's where we're putting our time and energy, and we have seen a lot of improvement. But we're a long way from being a cohesive unit that can go out there and look sharp and look fluid while we're playing the game. And I think, one thing I hope desperately that we get, but it's looking like it's going to be very difficult to get, would be some preparation games. That would do wonders for this group of players to be able to highlight areas of weakness instead of having to play against each other all day, every day. We would be able to see ourselves pitted against a different coach, a different style of play, different players. But I'm skeptical we're going to be able to make that happen. The powers that be are working on it. But again, the pandemic is, it's going to have its say in what we're able to do.
Coach, but how about Gilas playing as a guest team in the PBA?
Well, that would be too late. I don't think the PBA is slated to start until we're just about ready to play our games. So what we would need is, ideally, we would need some warm-up games with PBA teams. But as I said, that we're going to have to worry about health protocols. We're going to have to worry about government restrictions. And it's not going to be easy to make that happen.
Okay. Coach, got to talk to your former player, Mark Dickel in the US, and any chances of inviting him or bringing him back as part of the Gilas coaching staff? Not maybe this time, maybe in the future?
Look, there's always a possibility of that because Mark had a good run here. He did a good job with Talking Text. He did a good job with Gilas when he was there. He left on good terms with everybody. So there's no reason to think that eventuality couldn't happen. We don't see it as a need right now. But if that point in time arose where we felt he would be a major benefit to the program, then I don't see any obstacles to it. Management has already, opened the door to Mark if he wanted to come back in other capacities. So I think that that's a possibility. But in the short term, it's not something that we're looking at right now.
I appreciate it, Coach. Thank you.
Coach?
Yeah, sorry, I'm muted. Coach Tab, what do you think is the effect that the retirement of Boss MVP on Gilas program, boss? He's about to step down this coming June, but we know that Boss Al Panlilio might, take his spot. But what are the problems that you want to be addressed at this point, boss?
Look, security of resources has always been what we've had with Boss MVP there, and I know that he wants that to continue. He has such a tremendous love for this team, for this nation, and how this team can be reflected, to the nation and for the nation. So, we're hopeful of that. But again, Snow, that's way above my pay grade. And, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for those discussions, but I don't know. And, I have a deep hope and desire that the commitment of the corporation continues, the commitment of Boss MVP's designees continues. But I'm sure that there are so many factors in the decision-making process that I'm not aware of. So really, it's just a hope. And, you know, as he does step away, you know, one small step by another small step, I just hope that everybody appreciates what he has meant to basketball in this country, the national team, and gives him his due. He's been a competitor to some people. He's been an adversary to some people, but I think he has deserved respect from everybody for the passion and the contributions that he's made to the sport. And, you know I wouldn't have wanted to coach against his team. I know I've been in his group. And so therefore I'm intimate with, you know, my love and respect for the man and appreciation for the man. But I think even if I was on the other side, I would feel much the same.
All right. Coach, some more questions from our viewers, your fans. Jarpil Gamboa, Coach, what is our chance of beating Korea once again and feel the same heartwarming moment we felt in 2013?
You know, I'm not a big predictor of outcomes. I think every day that we train here, we get closer to having a team that is going to measure up. But Korea is bringing an experienced team. They're bringing a very strong team. I sure wish we had the Filipino faithful in the stands for the game. I think that would mean something, particularly for a younger team. But again, I'm an optimist. I believe that we can win, but I'm not a predictor. I know that we have to go out on the day and work hard, and I know we have to go out as an underdog on the day, and we have to play above ourselves in order to be able to do that. But it is eminently possible, and it is what I will expect of the team and what the team will expect of themselves.
Coach, you talked about Coach Mark Dickel earlier from Sir Jerry. I hope you don't mind me asking this question, this PBA question. What's your thoughts on his on TNT letting him go after that finals run, just after that finals run with the Tropang Liga?
I sympathize with him because I've been let go by TNT as well. No, look, you know, it's been said millions of times. Coaches are either waiting to get hired or waiting to get fired, you know. And, you know, there were reasons for Mark going back to the States as well. So this was sort of a cooperative decision with the TNT management. I know that Mark wasn't just summarily let go. I know there were discussions there. But, you know, I also know that he loved the job and he loved the players and he would have loved to continue. But, you know, there were a multiplicity of factors. And Talk and Text has to make business decisions. You know, every professional team has to make business decisions. And, you know, they do that for the best interest of their team. And I don't expect as a coach an organization to ever make a decision that is in my best interests. I expect them to make decisions that are in the best interest of the organization and the players. And whether I agree with it or not, I think that MVP's group has shown in the past that that's what they do. And obviously they felt and believed that was the case this time. So, you know, really doesn't matter what I think, my opinion of it. I support the organization. And it's just time to move on. And I know that's what Mark has done.
Coach, this is a mythical question, Coach. You've been around Philippine basketball for a while. You've been there in the World Cup, you've been World Cup team, the ABC team, up to now, Coach. If you build a mythical, the best five from all those players that you've seen, maybe with Gilas or in the PBA, which five would it be, Coach?
Including the naturalized player?
Yes, Coach, yes.
I would probably put, I'm a big Paul Lee fan. When Paul is in shape and playing well, I would put Paul Lee at the point. And I know I just left a whole lot of good players out, but you know, that's what you do when you make a mythical team. I think Marcio Lassiter has proven over the years that he was a great two-way player, great shooter, and also back in his younger days, he was an extremely tough defender. I would like Gabe Norwood at the three. If I didn't have Gabe there, it would be his twin, Jordan Clarkson, and I would use him as the naturalized player. So it would be an either or, and I think I would like Jordan there. But then we get to the big men, of course, and that's always a tough call and an easy call because we just don't have the depth of big men that we would like. And I think, that just off the top of my head, Japet and Junmar would probably be the guys that would, jump in those spots with Jordan there. And when it's a 5, that means we leave the bench out. And of course, you don't win internationally without a great bench. So that would probably be my 5. And I wouldn't mind going to battle with those guys.
Wow. Yeah, great 5, coach. Thanks for that, coach.
Coach, before I ask my question, one of your Gilas cadets is watching, Alin Bolanadi. I think he's watching from Davao. It's a great timing because he's also watching. You mentioned earlier that you're also gonna have a new bubble. You're gonna invite Juan and hopefully some other guys. Is Sturdy, is Alin, is Ken Tuffin maybe, who's in New Zealand, or maybe AJ Edu, among those names you're considering upon inviting in that next bubble?
Absolutely, all of the above. And throw James Spencer in there. We really like him. He's a big, strong, talented guard who's a tremendous defender. And, there would be other names. But all those guys you mentioned, given their availability, given their desire, yes, we would expand the pool to include all of those guys. And, we see all of them as competing for places in this team. And, ultimately, as I said, it broadens the number of players that we ultimately have to choose from.
All right, Coach. Anyway, we're down to the last 5 minutes of our program, and we thank you, boss, for the time you spent with us. Before the program started, you were like asking, "Oh, that long? 1.5 hours?" See, we still have so much. We still have a ton of questions for you, but we're giving you your time so you can rest and prepare for the national team. But nonetheless, boss, I'll be asking a few more questions from our viewers, and then we will proceed with our fast break. Our fast break is one of the segments of our program wherein we ask 5 quick questions from our interviewees that he or she needs to answer within the next 3 seconds. But nonetheless, I'll be reading some of the questions first from our viewers. From JT Chio, with the conflict of schedules of PBA and Gilas, have you considered looking at the young PBA players who were released by teams this offseason and add them to your Gilas pool?
No, we make all of our selections based on players that we think have the potential to represent the country at the elite level. And certainly if a player got released and we thought that he was good enough, we would invite them in. But generally speaking, we are directly in conflict with the PBA, which is a good thing. We both want the same players because they are elite players. And it's up to us, SBP and PBA, to work these things out.
Last 2 questions from viewers, boss. Here's an anticlimactic question from Wayne Tulio. Who among the current Gilas pool players in the bubble do you feel will surprise Pinoy fans?
I'm not one that's big on, highlighting individual players, but I think there've been a lot of surprises about who we brought into the bubble, and I think that some of those players, have the potential to be upstarts and surprise people. But I'm not going to get into names. It's too delicate with these guys. I want these guys keeping their minds on the work and not thinking that I like them at all or I believe in them. I don't want to go there. They have to work to earn everybody's praise.
It's like having children, right? You treat them fairly and equally. All right.
Exactly.
A question from Rizal Reyes. Are there plans to hire a shooting coach like Chip Engeland?
We've had John Townsend do a bit of work with us by Zoom, and I wouldn't rule that out. John Townsend used to be with 76ers. He's got a long tenure working with NBA teams. So we have done a bit of that here in the bubbles, and I wouldn't preclude that at all. That's something that does have some value for sure.
All right. And the last question from our viewers. He's a former colleague turned fan of Spin.ph and Coach Tab. James Uiti, the third. Will Jordan Clarkson play for Gilas in 2023?
I don't know. There are too many moving parts right now. Is he going to be naturalized? Is he available? Can he be afforded? Does he want to? Do we need a big man more than we need a Jordan Clarkson? There's just too many moving parts to make that decision on May 13th.
All right, we now proceed to our fast break, which we also call our fast five. Within 3 seconds, Coach, you have to answer the questions. We start off with Randolph. Randolph.
Coach, I'll get you off fairly easy. Basketball, baseball, or golf? If you have to play one sport, what it is?
Baseball.
Baseball. Okay. Sticking with that, Coach, if there's any more team caps that you need in your collection, what is it?
I don't need any more. Or maybe Boston Bruins.
You're okay with your Boston Red Sox? Okay.
Just more Boston Red Sox or a Boston Bruins hat.
Anyways, Coach, going back to basketball, 3 players you wish you could have coached internationally.
His name eludes me right now. Dejan Bodiroga would be one. I would say LeBron James, but coaches don't tend to last too much with him, so I'll leave him off. I'm happy having Coach Piero Cameron. I think he's one of the best that I could have ever coached. And just off the top of my head, Manu Ginobili.
Wow.
Second to the last, Coach, if there's one team or one country that if...
Your internet is lagging, Randolph.
Yeah.
That wasn't a quick... Yeah, can you do it again? Can you ask the question again?
Yeah, one team or one country that if they offered you a coaching job, you will never take.
That I would never take it?
Yes, Coach.
Australia.
What? You will never coach Australia.
You already knew the answer to that one, though, Randolph.
Yeah,
That's just a setup question. I'm a Kiwi. I can't coach Australia. It's against my religion.
Anyways, Coach, my last question. If you have a chance to get another dog, what breed will you take?
Chocolate Lab.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, Coach. So the next Fast Five will be from Boss Ruben. But first, let me just say hello to my good friend Hugo John McDonald of Security Man. He's watching. Ben.
Yeah. Coach, I also have a baseball question, but Randolph, nauna ka na kasi. Pero anyway, Coach, first question, Coach, best place in the Philippines?
Apart from my house, probably Palawan, from what I've seen.
Palawan, okay. Favorite Filipino dish?
Sinigang.
Have you eaten balut?
No.
No, okay. Baseball or golf? But we already know the answer, right, Coach?
Baseball every day.
Yeah. Do you think the Red Sox will win the World Series?
Yes.
Coach, from 1 to 10, describe your golf game.
4.
4, okay. Who was your pick in the Masters?
I didn't follow it this year.
You didn't follow, all right.
No.
Best golfer in Philippine basketball that you played with?
Kiefer Ravenna.
Oh, okay. All right. Coach, basketball. 5 NBL championships or 2002 FIBA World Championship?
Say that again. 5 NBL championships.
Or 2002 FIBA World Championship? I think that's an easy question, Coach.
You mean finishing 4th?
Right, yeah. 2002 FIBA World Championship.
No, it's not an easy question.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because we lost the last game in 2002, and I don't like losing.
Okay.
I'll say 5 NBL championships.
So even when the New Zealand placed 4th, you were miserable after that?
I was miserable after that, exactly.
All right. That's interesting. Coach, 2015 FIBA Asia Championship or 2016 OQT?
We lost both of them, but I think I was more challenged by the OQT. They were both tough. I like the 15 team the most.
All right, because maybe could you?
Because they were underdogs.
Right.
They were underdogs like me.
All right. And coach, last question from 1 to 10. Chances that, although you answered it earlier, chances that you'll be staying in the Philippines for good. Rate it from 1 to 10.
7 with a question mark.
All right. Thank you, coach.
Coach Ryan Gregorio is watching. Hi, good afternoon, Coach Ryan.
What's up, Ryan?
Our SAP. Anyway, Coach, just one quick question before I pass the mic to Carlo. How will Gilas make you eat balot?
I'm sorry, say that again, Snow.
How will Gilas make you eat balot, boss? Because you say you haven't tried balot yet.
Zero chance. I can't be financially incentivized where my stomach is concerned, so they have zero chance. Maybe if they lie to me and tell me it's something else.
Have you already touched one? Have you already seen one in person?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have, and I will not eat one.
Okay. Carlo, it's your turn.
Coach, I just have 3 questions, so it's just past 3. Who's the toughest coach to match up with in a series in college or the PBA?
I mean, from my experience, Ateneo. He's tough.
Would you rather coach the worst team in the NBA or the best team in the PBA?
Best team in the PBA. Have no desire to be involved with the NBA.
Okay. And last, I know you want to veer away from hero ball, but who would you put the ball in the hands of with the game on the line? Paul Lee, Jason Castro, or Terence Romeo?
Paul Lee.
That's all. Thank you. It's an honor.
Boss, you keep on mentioning Paul. Boss, you keep on mentioning Paul Lee. Did you, during your time at TNT, did you even, tinker at the possibility of trading for him?
I was never really involved that much in the trades. I mean, I would have said on several occasions, if we could get Paul Lee, I would have said that many times, yes, but I don't think it was ever a possibility.
But were you able to mention it to the management of TNT?
No, I didn't really, get involved in that. I talked to the coach, whoever the coach was.
But do they know, boss? Do they know?
That I love Paul Lee as a player?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. So it's an open book. Anyway, Boss Jerry, it's your turn.
No, happy birthday muna sa KSBP personnel. Ex-Gubat, happy birthday. Okay, Coach. My first take, if you have a time machine, where would you go? In the past or in the future?
The past.
Okay. Why? Why in the past, Coach?
I'd go back and live my life over again. I've had so much fun that I'd want to do it all again.
Okay. Apart from Paul Lee, Coach, Olympic berth at stake and game down in the last 5 seconds. Who among your former Gilas players would you choose to take the last shot?
If he was open, Don Hontiveros.
Wow.
If I could get him open, I would choose Don.
Okay. Can you name a local coach that intrigue or interest you in terms of his system and style?
Chito Victorero.
Oh,
really?
Why, Coach?
I like the way he coaches his defense. I like the way he handles his team. I mean, he's just the guy that I've seen a bit of, and I'm intrigued by how he coaches his team. I think there's a lot to learn from Chito.
Okay, number 4. If you own the number 1 pick, who would you choose? Calvin Abueva or Terence Romeo?
I don't know.
Why, Coach?
I just don't know. I mean, it depends on my team, and you've asked the question that I'm just not going to answer.
Okay, Coach, who's the better player, Paddy El Khatib or Said Abbas?
Zed Abbas.
Said Abbas. Okay, appreciate it, Coach.
Okay, Coach. This is my take, my fast takes. Your take on the Hagop rule.
Sorry, Snow again.
Your take on the Hagop rule.
Snow, you are a bad man. you are not my friend. You are a very bad journalist, reporter. You are really a bad man. So, are my 3 seconds up?
Yeah. You have to. You can pass out.
I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it.
All right, that's good. Me too. Anyway, name 5 Gilas who are impressive right now. We already asked this a while ago. What separates Philippine basketball from the rest of the world, boss?
Passion, probably passion, and a landscape where there are a tremendous number of factors that go into the decision making because so many people care about it, and that's both a strength and a weakness.
Boss, who is the best all-time Pinoy shooter? Don Ontiveros, Alan Kaidik, or you have somebody else on your list?
By reputation, I'd say Alan, because I haven't seen the clips of Alan or anything else like that. But I mean, Don is a pure shooter. There's others. I mean, Marcio is a great shooter. I'm a little bit lost for other names.
But do you think that there's a really pressing need for us to have another one like them?
Oh, there's always a need to have great shooters. I think people are going to see that Javi Gomez Deliano is going to fall into that category in the long run. He's a tremendous shooter of the basketball. So yeah, I mean, you're right. We'll take as many as we can get, Snow, but they better play defense and they better rebound, or they can sit over there with me and watch the game.
All right. Okay, another take, boss. Can you speak one Tagalog sentence? Your favorite Tagalog sentence, Tagalog line?
Indeed.
But you speak Tagalog, boss. You cuss in Tagalog too.
I'm not. Unfortunately, I haven't done a good job learning the language, but I do know a bit. Some is recognizable to me, but I've been to so many countries. I've learned bits and pieces of so many language, and I'm trying to keep my head as clear as possible and keep the old age stuff away. That I don't want to muddy it up with any more languages. So I'm just blessed that people here speak English. So I'm lazy about that.
So that's one way that you're not able to. You're not having troubles. Dealing with people here, right? Because they speak English, unlike in the other countries, right?
And that is a real blessing for me. That's something that if I could do it over again, I probably would invest more time and energy into the language. But 6 years, almost 7 years down the track now, I've been here long enough to understand a bit, but unfortunately I don't speak it.
All right. Anyway, last question was, did you consider Greg Slaughter to the team?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that Greg could help us, but like all the other PBA players, he has to go through the processes of working with the PBA and his mother team before we have the opportunity to use them.
All right. Last question, boss. Who is the Filipino coach you don't want to play against?
Filipino coach, I wouldn't. I mean, I love a challenge. I mean, certainly, Tim's record. Anytime you get a chance to pitch yourself against a coach like Tim Cohn, I wouldn't say I don't want to do that, but I'd say that I wouldn't go in that game feeling confident. But I certainly would love the challenge. I'd love the challenge to coach a series against the guy like Tim, because pit myself with the adjustments and the game-to-game variations. I think he's tremendous at that. And I'm looking always for challenges. That's why I'm in sports. That's why I'm not an accountant. I like challenges.
Coach, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you in the show this afternoon, and we can come up with a lot of stories for Spin in the next few days, just talking about you. So expect your face to be on our website for the next 5 days. But nonetheless, boss, my internet connection is unstable. But like I said, boss, expect your face to be on every stories of Spin.ph for the next 5 days. But nonetheless,
hopefully, Snow, some big story will break, which will push me well down the, well down the track, because we don't want to break the Spin site, with my image all over it. So, and I do want to just say hello to Aline Bulanati. We miss you, buddy, and we're looking forward to getting you back with us. It's been a tough run for him. So, stay well. God bless you, and keep working, Aline.
All right, Boss Doc, you want to say something, Boss Doc?
We're starting with the Jabel McGee story, Coach.
I knew you would.
just joking,
I
Coach.
knew you would. And you'll misquote me for sure.
Coach, just one last question. Just last question. How's Andre Blatch? Is he coming back or?
I haven't spoken with Andre. I haven't had any contact with Andre since 2016.
Mm-hmm. But is there a possibility that he'll have another Call of Duty?
That would be something that SBP would have to comment on. I'm not the coach, so I wouldn't be commenting on the naturalized options at this point in time. And that's an SBP comment.
All right. Coach, if there are some things that we failed to ask you during the course of our program, you have the time to share it to our viewers, to the Gilas fans, and any more message that you want to impart to the Filipinos. Boss, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Snow. Appreciate that. And all I really want to say is to your listeners and to the fans is that we're doing our best. We are really doing our best. I'm very, very proud of this group of young men. And we're very honored to serve you. And that may sound cliche-ish, but I've stood on the basketball court in 5 different countries and put my hand over my heart for 5 different national anthems. And when I do that for the Philippine national anthem, it means something special to me because of the passion of the Philippine fans for your country and for your national team. And that means that we, as the national team, have to pay homage to that. We have to respond to that. And the work ethic of these young men has been exemplary. You will be proud of them. And I'm proud to be able to say that.
Can we say that you're lucky that you have these people behind you, sir? These passionate people. That you have these passionate people behind you. The Filipino fans.
And there's no question. I mean, I don't believe in luck. For some reason, we're all here. We're in this situation. This team is representing these people, and they know that the Philippine fans, while they are demanding, they also know they are passionate, and that's fair. That's fair. We have to live up to that standard.
And thank you so much, Coach Tab. Well, on that note, unless our boys still has a question, all right. So on behalf of Boss Randolph Liamson, Boss Carlos Ramos, Boss Jerry Ramos, Boss Ruben Tirado, Boss Dodo Kataputan, and also Boss Jam Mariano and Ma'am Liza Gokongwei Cheng, and to the rest of the men and women of Summit Media, and of course to Coach Tab Baldwin and the rest of the Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas, Boss Al Panlilio. This has been Snow Badwa. Thank you so much. We'll see you again this coming Thursday with Kiefer Ravena for Spin Zoom In. Thank you so much, guys, and enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
For everything about life beyond the game.
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 For everything about life
Beyond the game.
Visit spin.ph/life.
For everything about life beyond the game.
For everything about life.
For everything about life.
For everything about life beyond the game.
Beyond the game.
Beyond the game.
Beyond the game. For everything about life.
Beyond the game.
Beyond the game. Visit Spin.ph/life.
For everything about life.
For everything about life.
For everything about life beyond the game, visit spin.ph/life.
Spin.ph/life.